What's up, Undisputed listeners? It's your boy, Sharpe. I wanted to tell you about my new podcast, Club Shay, where we always do something before two something. Each week, I sit down with a guest for a drink and conversation, and as host and proprietor of Club Shay, I've welcomed in esteemed guests such as Snoop Dogg, Floyd Money Mayweather, LeVar Ball, Isaiah Thomas, just to mention a few. Whether I'm talking to an athlete, a musician, an actor, or a lifelong friend, Club Shay is a place where people share inspiring and motivational stories about their journeys to prominence. The new episode drops every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Club Shay now and make sure you never miss a new episode. Now back to Undisputed.
Welcome to the Undisputed Podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Taft. This podcast is the full show from today's episode of Undisputed from start to finish. They've got a busy slate, so skip Shannon. Let's get to it.
Welcome to Undisputed Live from Los Angeles. I'm Jason McIntyre here with LeVar Arrington and Chris Broussard. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning. Hey, shouts out to Tiger, too, by the way. Before we get started, before we go any further, lots of love. Prayers out to you. Get well soon, Tiger.
Definitely. What's up, guys? And prayers up for Tiger Woods and his family.
Yeah. Well said, guys. Let's get to the show. The Cowboys and Dak Prescott reportedly haven't made any substantial progress toward a long-term contract extension ahead of the 21 season. One insider says it, quote, feels like there's a very long way to go. Dallas has until March 9th to place the franchise tag on Dak for a second straight season, which gives the two sides until July to discuss a long-term deal. And Dak might have more leverage this offseason since the cap-strapped Cowboys would have to pay him $37.7 million if he plays under the franchise tag in 2021. All right, LeVar, will Dallas regret it if they don't lock up Dak long-term this offseason?
I have to jump out there and say, no, they won't regret it. And I think, it's unfortunate, but the reason why franchise tags are frowned upon in so many ways is because of there not being longevity for safety or just comfort and commitment from the team. They're basically giving you a one-year deal. And although it's a lot of money, there's no longevity there. There's no securities there. And we saw it happen, and it was horrible that it did. But he hurt himself, and it was a horrific injury. If they were going to give Dak that contract that Dak was looking for, it would have happened last season, Jason. The problem here is that maybe Dak and his agents are pushing for a number that just isn't going to be a realistic due or buy-in from the Dallas Cowboys. So you pose the question, is it a mistake for Dallas to not? Will they regret this, not getting this done? Whereas I look at this as, what is that sweet spot? What is that number that you can get to gain that longevity, knowing that you played your cards, you played your hands, and you lost by getting injured? So I'm looking at Dak and his representation, and I'm saying, is it a regret if him and his representation doesn't get a deal done that's a long-term deal? May not be as much as you wanted, but is it the right deal for you to have some security, a little bit of longevity, and understanding that, you know what, if I continue to play and do something well, that maybe we'll throw this one out and do a different contract, Chris?
LeVar, this must be the linebacker in you, man.
Okay.
Because you clearly have it out for quarterbacks. Yesterday, really Seattle doesn't need Russell Wilson. Be gone, Russ. We don't need you. And now Dallas is fine without Dak Prescott.
It's the business of it.
I ain't mad at you. You were a defensive guy. I get it. But no, look, I think it'd be horrible for the Cowboys if they don't sign Dak Prescott. And I get it. I'm not mistaking him for Pat Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or anybody like that. However, Dak Prescott,
but giving that money,
I believe, has proven he's with the money.
He ain't them.
So they're going to franchise tag him.
Pay him the same money as them, but he ain't them. I'm just saying, Chris Broussard.
But that's just the nature of the business. That's just the nature of the business.
If that was the nature of the business, they would have gave it to him.
It's not just about how much you're worth. It's about the time of your signing. All right? And if they messed this up years ago, they should have signed Dak 2 years ago. They probably could have got him for an average of less than $30 million a year. I'm almost certain they would have, and they'd be fine. They could have signed him last year for what? $35 million a year over 4 years. They insisted on 5. They blew it. Now, I think they're going to sign him, and it is going to be at an average of about $40 million a year. And it's unfortunate because I agree he's not worth that type of money, but he is a franchise quarterback. And it is not easy to get a franchise quarterback. I know now the thinking is that we can draft a guy and we can have him on his rookie year for a few years. And while he's on his rookie scale, we can build around him and win a Super Bowl. That's happened with 2 teams. All right, Pat Mahomes, who may be the greatest to ever do it when it's all said and done, and Russell Wilson, who had this all-time phenomenal defense, the Legion of Boom. Otherwise, name the young quarterback who won the Super Bowl recently in his rookie scale. So that's a fallacy. Franchise quarterbacks don't grow on trees, even when young guys do start off well. Jared Goff, Carson Wentz. We don't know if they're going to remain there. I've got to see it for 4 years or so, and I've seen it with Dak. Dak Prescott, through his first 4 years, had more wins than any more wins than any quarterback, LeVar.
Broussard.
Not named Tom Brady or Russell Wilson.
Have you had your brain coffee yet, Broussard? Because your brain is sleep on that statement right there. Your brain is sleep, player. Come on. Come on.
You're talking feelings.
You don't mean that.
All right,
You're
let me jump in here,
feelings.
Chris. Listen.
I'm talking facts.
All right, so Chris is kind of right, LeVar. We have to give him credit. Dallas did screw this up, right? We all agree that Jerry could have got this done a couple years ago. But, Chris, LeVar is onto something here. There is the option where you say, you know what? We haven't been to a Super Bowl in, 25 years? Our Super Bowl drought can drive a rental car. That's how bad it's been for us right now. Maybe we just let Dak walk in free agency and start over. Why? Because, Chris, if you end up signing him to that $37.7 million franchise tag or even a 5-year deal, giving him Mahomes-ish money or Deshaun Watson money, you're going to be so cap-strapped. You're going to have to lose Leighton Vander Esch, and you're going to have to be losing Michael Gallup and all these ancillary pieces. And, Chris, I got to be honest with you. For me, Dak Prescott, he's kind of like my Netflix subscription, right? The price keeps going up, and I don't know if the quality is getting better. I really don't know if he's made that leap from, as you said, really good quarterback who's won a lot of games to can take you to a Super Bowl. You only want to talk about winning the Super Bowl? What about Jared Goff getting to the Super Bowl on his rookie contract? Then they got to pay him. Yikes, this guy stinks. Let's kick him to the curb. Carson Wentz on the rookie deal. Eagles get to the Super Bowl. I know it was Nick Foles at quarterback. Then you got to pay Wentz. Oh, my gosh, we can't build a team. Kick him to the curb. I do believe there is a nuclear option for Dallas where you say, you know what? We want Dak for 5. He only wants 4 because he wants to come back to the table in 4 years and get another massive contract. I think we just part ways now. We punt, and we got to hit the reset button because, guys, this is not a Super Bowl team. LeVar, you'd agree with me. They ain't winning the Super Bowl next year with Dak Prescott.
And that's the reason why Goff and Wentz got paid. You will admit that, right, Broussard? I mean, let's be clear here. They got paid because their teams made it to the Super Bowl, yes? Are we okay with agreeing on that?
And they were playing well at that point.
They were playing,
yes, but they were playing
fairly well.
Yeah.
They were playing fairly well. And you know what? Dak Prescott has played fairly well at times. In fact, I am one who said he should have been in the conversation for MVP the year before. Not this year where he got hurt, but the year before. So, but they have not been competitive enough to justify paying him that type of money. If we're saying he's a winner, he has won. But what has he won outside of winning? And that might sound like an oxymoron, and I get that. And it might have flew over some of y'all's heads, and I get that. But what has he really won, Chris? What has he really won? What, he's made it out of, the first round of the playoffs? Is that how far he's made it, to the second round of the playoffs?
He won a playoff game.
Okay, so here's my thing. Here's my thing. If you're looking at the success that Jerry Jones is seeking when he thought he had a Super Bowl-ready team to play, are we looking at this Dallas Cowboys team and saying they're closer to being a Super Bowl caliber team this year, personnel-wise, than what they've been in the last 2 years? I would say no. I would not look at this team. Ezekiel has been a disappointment. Their offensive line has been a disappointment. Their receiving core, far and wide, if you're looking at what you projected them to be, has been a disappointment. Their defense has been a disappointment. Their coaching staffs have been a disappointment. Let me think about it. Their whole entire team has been a disappointment. So why are you going to take and make an investment where if you franchise tag him, it's 37. He wanted somewhere around 38, 39, close to 40. Why are you going to pay him that in a franchise tag or pay him that in annual payout fees, signing bonuses, when you don't have a Super Bowl contending team? And I think it's hard to justify calling him a franchise quarterback today. I think he has franchise potential. I think as a face, he represents being a franchise quarterback. But in terms of results, I can't go there and put the franchise tag on him as a quarterback.
Well, some people falsely, obviously, picked Dallas to reach the Super Bowl this year.
Every year.
And the year before.
Every year.
We know they have talent. The offensive line should get better as it gets healthy. That receiving core is still pretty good. I'm with you. Zeke has been disappointing. Maybe he'll have a bounce back year, maybe he won't. I still got Tony Pollard. All right, I get it. They're not a great team, it looks like. That defense was horrible last year. But I do think Dak's a franchise quarterback. How in the world has he won in his first 4 years? Because last year he got hurt. First 4 years, he won more games than any quarterback not named Tom Brady or Russell Wilson. This is with a franchise that had one winning season
he has not won
in the
more
6 years
than those
before he got there.
He has not won more than those quarterbacks. He has won more.
He's won more than every other quarterback.
That's correct, but he has not won more.
Regular. LeVar, that's also with 6 games.
The devil is in the details, Chris Broussard.
Elliott.
Chris, let me push back and ask.
Look,
okay? So you said
hold on. Let me finish. Let me finish, J-Mac. All right. They went after Troy, from Roger Staubach to Troy Aikman. It was 10 years. From Troy Aikman to Tony Romo, it was 6 years. And even with Romo as a franchise quarterback, you had a lot of losing or mediocrity in that run.
Correct.
My point is, when you have a guy that has the intangibles, I think you might admit that, he's got the intangibles of a franchise quarterback.
Yes. He's
a leader.
Yes.
He gets the trust and respect of his players in the locker room. He's high character.
Yes.
And over the past few years, he has shown he can throw the football. Early on, I think he was a game manager who could make plays. Now he's shown you he can actually throw the football well. He's improved in his accuracy, obviously his yards per game and things like that. Look, I get it. I'm not saying he's Pat Mahomes, but I am saying that he's a franchise quarterback, and to get any franchise quarterback, it's going to cost you, and the cost is going up. 2 years ago, I didn't think Dak was worth $30 million. I'd gladly take him at $30 million right now.
Yeah. So, Chris,
you got to look forward.
They were willing to pay $30 million.
A Trevor Lawrence.
They were willing to pay him $30 million this year. They were willing to give him that $30 million annually.
This year,
LeVar,
but not
Chris
2
keeps
years
talking
ago.
about quarterback wins. I personally hate that as a stat, but since you're obsessed with it, okay? Quarterback wins. It's easy when you're, a mid-round draft choice, making under the quarterback minimum, a couple $100,000. You can pay the offensive line. You can pay the trenches. You can build out cornerbacks. You can have an awesome roster when your quarterback's on the cheap. That's how they won all those games with game manager Dak.
Really?
Now you got to pay him $37 million. You don't have the offensive line depth. They had to restructure 3 of their best guys in the trenches, DeMarcus Lawrence, Zach Martin, the left tackle, last year. And then all of them got hurt. And then there's zero depth. So now you got to up the ante to pay Dak. Chris, you can't build a roster to even win the division if you're paying Dak top dollar. Would you envision the idea of
that
hey,
division? Man, you could.
Why don't you just say, you know what, Dak, we like you a lot. We can't come to a deal. Thank you for your service, and let him hit the market. Because, Chris, I think LeVar and I are on lockstep here. I don't think anyone around the league is going to pony up $37 million a year for Dak Prescott.
No one.
They might not pony up 37, but they'll pony up over 30. I tell you that. He'll get paid.
But see,
Chicago, one of these teams out there that needs a quarterback, they'll go for it.
We can agree on that.
Believe you me.
But Dallas is willing to give them over 30.
Yes.
See, that's not. So the point, you're right. You make the point. We're not going to 40. And you see I have on my Dallas colors, and I am not a Dallas fan, by the way. And I did not mean to say we. Dallas will probably give him somewhere, I would assume, I don't want to spend their money, 35, 34. They're going to give him a nice number. The number that Dak Prescott's representation is trying to leverage and get, they are playing a very dangerous game of chicken. And when you play chicken, and it's as dangerous as it is for Dak Prescott and his representation, them chickens be smashed on the road. They don't be walking back. You don't get missed, you get hit. And they need to make sure that they're aware of the fact. And Dak, they work for you. Your agency works for you. You paying them. Don't let them mess you up. Because to me, I feel as though this standoff as to why it didn't get done last year and leading into a serious season-ending injury is because you're going for a number that they clearly are not going to give you. Ezekiel Elliott did the same exact thing the year before, held him hostage on the beach with Marshall Faulk, working out, taking his good old time during training camp. And you know what they did, Chris? They got it done. They did not get it done with Dak, and it doesn't look like they're going to get it done if they're staying at the number that they're staying at. That's just facts. So, like you said, feelings, facts, that's just facts.
LeVar, they're trying to let Deshaun Watson's market set what Dak Prescott should get. They're saying, well, Deshaun Watson got this. We're the next quarterback getting the deal. Give us Deshaun Watson money. Chris Broussard, do you think Dak Prescott deserves the same money that Deshaun Watson got from the Houston Texans?
It's not about deserves. It's about the timing.
No, you're right.
It's about
you're right with what you're saying.
Trust me. If Dak Prescott signs for $40 million a year over 4 or 5 years, in a few years, he won't be the second highest paid guy in the league.
That's true.
It's all about time. Look, 2 years ago, Dallas wasn't willing to give him $35 million a year. Last year, they were willing to give him $35 million a year. Now, they'll give him 40. If they franchise Dak, he's gone. And then, like I said, who knows when you're getting the next quarterback?
Rob Parker always bets you on air, puts himself out there for public consumption of losing bets to you, one Chris Broussard. I will bet you on that one on national television. He will not get $40 million guaranteed. I can guarantee you that. We can make that a bet right here, right now on TV.
Let's do the bet here. Franchise tag is like $38 million.
37.
So he will get more than that. What I'm saying, 37.7. What I'm saying is his deal with Dallas will average more than the franchise tag. How about
that's
that?
That's a safer
so
deal.
38.
I think that's a safer lob. It's a better lob than 40 because 40 is not going to happen. I can actually go there with you. We can go to the crib on that one. I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't, because I think the factors are working against him. That injury, you got to take into consideration. There are things that are working against Dak Prescott in this. And I don't know that he'll get that amount of money, but I could see it. I can see all of those elements that you said Dak brings to the table, the leadership, the buy-in. He does win, not quality games. He doesn't win big games, Chris Broussard, but he does win games, and he does win a lot of games. He doesn't win big games. Yeah. He doesn't win. If we go down the list, and I don't have the list in front of me, he doesn't win big games. He beats teams that are beatable teams.
Exactly. Chris, go back to 2019, late in the season against the Eagles. He was a disaster, and they lose that game. That was the game the Eagles used to propel themselves to the playoffs. Listen, there is a history of Dak beating up, as LeVar said, the weaker teams in the NFC. He crushes them. Go back to that 2019 season. Dak was great. Dak was phenomenal, but against New Orleans, he laid an egg. Against the Jets, who were terrible, and I know this because I'm a Jets fan, he was awful against the Jets. Against the Saints, against the Eagles. He just didn't come up big in the primetime games. Against the Patriots, there was a bit of a monsoon happening. But again, he didn't deliver. I like Dak Prescott, and I don't like this thing where if you say one negative thing about Dak, all of a sudden you hate him. I like him. I think he deserves franchise quarterback money in the low 30s. I'm not paying him anywhere near what Deshaun Watson got.
Look, I get it. I don't think Dak is a top 5 quarterback, but I'm telling you the market. It only goes up. Remember Jimmy Garoppolo was the highest paid player in NFL history. And then now he's not even, it's a great contract now. This is the way it works. And if Dallas had, I don't know how they didn't recognize it. I recognize it. If they had seen this 2 years ago, they wouldn't have this problem. Because here's the alternative. Let Dak walk. And then try to draft a top quarterback. Who knows if that'll happen? Sam Darnold was supposed to be the next guy. Jared Goff was supposed to be the next guy. Carson Wentz was supposed to be the next guy. Who knows? And you could be going another 6 years. And you mentioned all the money they've got locked up in other positions. That money's not going anywhere, whether you got Dak or a rookie quarterback. So unless you know you're going to be able to draft the next superstar quarterback, why in the world are you starting over? We know Jerry Jones wants to win now. We saw the Cowboys with a so-so quarterback this year, Andy Dalton. How'd that work out?
Not well.
So my point is, right.
It hasn't worked out well with Dak either. It hasn't worked out well with Dak either.
They made the playoffs 2 out of the 4 years he was healthy. They beat Seattle. That's a big win in a playoff game. I'll give you the last 2 years. He didn't win big games. But the 2 years before that, he did.
I love
and
how...
I can't give it all to the roster, J-Mac. J-Mac, that roster was 4-12 the year before Dak took over.
This is true.
That roster made the playoffs 1 out of 6 years, or had a winning record 1 out of 3 to 6 years.
You're doing qualifiers,
yeah, Chris,
bro.
by the way, Andy Dalton, they were bad last year with Andy Dalton. What were they with Dak before he got injured? They were 1-3. And I don't want to go to quarterback wins.
2-3.
They were 1-3, and then he got hurt in the Giants game that the backup came in and won. But go ahead, LeVar, wrap us up.
This is what I'll finish with. If you use that line of thought and reasoning that you're using to justify for Dak Prescott right now with Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson, it would fall flat. It would fall flat. So if you can't use it for those guys, you can't use it for Dak.
What line of reasoning?
Well, the reasoning of what you feel Dak has brought to the table in terms of his wins and the qualifiers of what other guys are getting paid on the roster, this being a win-now team. This is not a win-now team. It's not a win-now team. So if you're using qualifiers...
How long is Jerry Jones waiting?
He's not waiting. He's not waiting. He wants to win now with a not win now team. So I don't want to pay all that money to a quarterback where I can't win now. I think that's what's playing out right now. I'm not going to pay that because I can't win now with Dak Prescott. And win now meaning Super Bowl.
LeVar.
Super Bowl. We do know that.
He thinks he can win now.
They have not won now.
He thinks he can win now.
They have not won now.
No mercy.
Hey, Undisputed listeners, I wanted to tell you about our brand new Fox Sports app and website, foxsports.com. Reimagined for the modern sports fan. Go ahead, download the new app right now. You don't even have to pause this episode. Every day on the new app and website, you'll see the top stories in sports, plus a rich world of written content, videos, social media, and analytics to give you a 360-degree view of the most important stories of the day. Streaming live TV has never been so easy or elegant. Every Fox Sports game, including all pregame and postgame shows, are just one click away. For the extra invested fan, we also go deep with real-time wagering lines, trending prop bets, win probability, and key player projections. Download the new Fox Sports app or visit www.foxsports.com.
Hey, Undisputed listeners, it's Charlotte Wilder here to tell you about my new podcast with Mark Titus called the People Sports Podcast. It comes out every Thursday, and Mark and I take one of the big stories of the week, and then we go off on tangents you never saw coming. This might mean that we start talking about the Dodgers winning the World Series and end up wondering if Knicks fans deserve happiness. Or begin with LeBron's greatness and end up drafting our ultimate beer league softball team made up of old athletes. Whatever it is, the only rule of the show is that it has to be fun and funny, because these days we could all use as many laughs as we can get. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts and come down weird sports rabbit holes with us. We can't wait to have you.
The TB12 effect appears to be rubbing off in Tampa as Chris Godwin says that money won't be the only consideration when and if he hits the open market. He told Pat McAfee that he wouldn't choose a poor situation for, quote, a few extra dollars. And Bucs GM Jason Light hinted yesterday that Brady himself could get an extension, saying, quote, usually when you have those two things going for each other, it's a match made in heaven. So we'd like to keep this going. LeVar, are you starting to feel confident the Bucs will return Brady's Super Bowl winning roster?
I think they were going to try. And I think that it's not Tom Brady's Super Bowl winning roster. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl winning roster. They have a vested interest in making this work. And hey, listen, I look at it like this. It's sensible to look at how good they are personnel-wise. You know why, Chris Broussard? Because it is a win right now team. You want to look at the definition of what a win right now team is? It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So when you have certain guys that are going to go into the free agency market, that is always the destroyer of a Super Bowl winning team. You're not able to defend because they played so well. They take your coaches, they take your players. You're not able to return that nucleus of guys that was able to win that Super Bowl. I think they will not only look very hard at making sure they can keep Tom Brady for the next 3 years or so, but they will also look very hard at trying to figure out how to keep the core nucleus with guys like Chris Godwin, with guys like Shaq Barrett, and obviously you got to think Levante David to bring back. So I think this is an easy one here. It certainly is within the realm of sensibility for Bruce Arians and the upper management to think this has got to be a priority to try to figure this out to keep all these guys in-house.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Arians said it after they won the Super Bowl. We're going for another one. So they are trying to bring this team back, obviously, to talk about Brady with an extension. You're trying to keep this thing going and win a couple of Super Bowls, if not more. And look, I love what Chris Godwin is saying. I'm not going to leave a really good situation where maybe if they franchise him, he gets $16 million. On the open market, he can get $18 million, maybe $2 million more. I'm not going into a bad situation just to stay in Tampa Bay. I've got my Super Bowl. I like that mentality. However, every situation isn't a bad situation. So maybe a good situation will present itself and he does leave for a little bit more money or much more money. Here's the thing. As much as I like Chris Godwin isn't going to be the determining factor as to whether they win the Super Bowl or get to the Super Bowl next year. It's like you said, LeVar, they got to bring back Shaq Barrett, Levante David. Those are the priorities. On the offensive side of the football, yes, I want Chris Godwin back. But even if I don't get him back, I've got Mike Evans, arguably, one of the best receivers in the game. I've got Antonio Brown, who, if he plays well next year, guys, and has no problems, he could be in line for big money the year after. So he should be on his best behavior, and we know he's still got game. Obviously, Gronkowski isn't going anywhere. If he plays again, it'll be in Tampa Bay. You got Ronald Jones. I don't think Fournette's leaving. But if he does, I still got Ronald Jones. I got Scotty Miller. I got Tyler Johnson as a receiver. So that team is going to come back ready to make the Super Bowl again. They should be the favorites in the NFC. They're going to be better than next year. They're going to be more comfortable with each other. They're more confident. And Brady already sent them a message, because young guys who haven't won a lot can get complacent. We got this Super Bowl. Let's celebrate. Let's party. Let's enjoy it. And they have a hangover the following year. Brady with that Instagram post, a week and a half ago, where he was already out there working out for number 8, that's a sign to the rest of the players, hey, I got 7 of these. And I'm still working hard for another one. Yeah. So all the rest of y'all follow suit. So, yeah, I think Tampa Bay's coming back, and they're coming back strong.
Well, the good news, Chris, we have the number. They are favored, according to Vegas, to win the NFC and get back to the Super Bowl. Slight favorites the Tampa Bay Bucs are over Green Bay. I am curious, though, Godwin coming back is instrumental, okay? He's one of these versatile receivers, lined up 51% of the time in the slot and can go outside and win there. He is massive, Chris. But the Shaq Barrett situation bears watching, okay? There's some chatter out there that, hey, maybe he's replaceable with Von Miller, maybe Melvin Ingram, Ngakoue. There are options there, but Godwin coming back is massive because, of course, Brady, remember, Belichick kept cycling through Brady's guys in the slot. Well, we're just going to lose Wes Welker. We're going to get rid of Amendola. And Brady was never happy with that. The fact that Tampa's bending over backwards to make Tom Brady thrilled and now is saying, hey, man, we may just extend Brady 45, and maybe Tom Brady's playing for us at 47, 48. Like, they really want to keep this going. I don't know, man. I'm just shocked that Tom Brady can leave New England, 2 decades of dominance, go to Tampa, and basically start the cycle anew. I mean, there's got to be a lot of anger from Bill Belichick right now in New England. We're talking about, should he bring back Cam Newton? And Tom Brady's like, yeah, we'll bring back our Super Bowl roster. LeVar, they're favored to win the division. Drew Brees is expected to retire. They're favored to win the NFC. Like, Tom Brady's still on top of the world. This is madness.
As we continue to look at this and dissect it, Leonard Fournette was a very critical part of this team's success in the postseason. He made some very timely runs, some very timely plays for this team. But with that being said, you have depth and comfortable depth at that position. If Leonard Fournette wants to come back, it's going to have to be at a reasonable cost and a reasonable price. I don't necessarily disagree when you look at and say the other names at the receiver's position, but Chris Godwin, there is something to be said, as you mentioned about Dak Prescott in the last segment, Chris. There's something to be said about the continuity, the familiarity, the buy-in, and what they bring to the table. And Chris Godwin has been one of those guys from day one that has been an emerging leader and a constant presence to this team. I think the duo between Mike Evans and Chris Godwin is really what attracted Tom Brady to wanting to come to Tampa Bay in the first place. I looked at them bringing in AB. Tom Brady probably did. Bruce Arians didn't even want to bring him in. Byron Leftwich was okay with it, but we bring him in as a piece. We bring Gronkowski in as a piece. Those guys have to be signable. You know why? Because they are just serviceable players. As great as AB has been, as great as AB can be, as great as we will look at AB's career, he is a serviceable receiver for this Tampa Bay team. He has to be signable. Make room to be able to re-sign a guy like Chris Godwin. You don't want to lose the essence of what you created on that offense. And I'll say this, you're right about Shaq Barrett. You want to bring back Shaq Barrett, but the one guy out of, Ndamukong Suh, Shaq Barrett, Levante David is the guy you have to bring back. If you bring back your heartbeat of your defense, you can fill in some of those other spaces and those other places with other guys. But offensively speaking, that is the number one priority to this team because of what they had to do with Tom Brady, and they will address that aggressively. And that's why I don't think that we can sit here and look at and underestimate the fact that they are actually going to try to keep all of those guys in pocket in Tampa.
I like Godwin, but I do think you guys are overstating it a little bit. I have no doubt that Antonio Brown can step in there and do that. We saw Tom Brady win Super Bowls with far less talent than Mike Evans, AB, and Scotty Miller as his receivers, not to mention Tyler Johnson, and the host of tight ends. I mean, really, again, I'm not throwing shade at Chris Godwin, but I saw him drop a few passes in the playoffs. He was all right.
Did you just say it? I ain't throwing shade. I ain't saying I'm sure.
I saw him drop a few key passes. And all I'm saying is they will be fine without him. If he leaves, I want him back, but if he goes, they'll be fine. I mean, my goodness, how many tight ends and receivers do I need? And as far as Leonard Fournette, yes, Leonard Fournette was big in the playoffs. You know why he was so big? And he ran hard. I've been a Leonard Fournette fan since LSU. All right, so I love the guy, but he ran so well in the playoffs because Ronald Jones was out. If Ronald Jones had been healthy, he would have been running that hard and getting that yardage, if not more. During the regular season, Fournette averaged 28 yards a game. I mean, so my point is this, LeVar. He's not getting big money on the market.
No.
I mean, I don't know if he'll even get an offer elsewhere. So he'll be happy to come back to Tampa Bay. It won't be a ton of money, and he'll be in tow, and I'll have my two-headed running back with him and Ronald Jones. So, again, they'll be back intact, Chris Godwin or not.
Yeah. It's pretty nice when you don't have to pay your quarterback $40 million, right? And you can just build out everything around him.
How much they going to extend Brady for?
Well, he's not. Brady's 30? Never demanded top dollar. I do believe he's never been the highest paid quarterback in the league. It helps that he's been around for 20 years, and his wife is a former supermodel who's worth $500 million. But all right, let's move on. Yesterday, it was reported that Steelers president Art Rooney met with Ben Roethlisberger, and the meeting, quote, went well. Big Ben currently has a $41 million cap hit for next year, which is one of the highest in the entire NFL. But he seems willing to adjust his contract, and now, according to Roethlisberger's agent, Pittsburgh wants Big Ben back for his 18th season with the team, adding, quote, they lost steam down the stretch, and that doesn't sit well for him. So the fire burns strong, and there is plenty left in the gas tank. LeVar, do you think Big Ben has another good year left?
Well, first of all, it's Art Rooney the second. If you're from Pittsburgh, you can't just say Art Rooney because the first has to be the first. This is Art Rooney the second. Yes, he does have some left in the tank, but they're not bringing him back to be a Super Bowl champion quarterback. I'll tell you what they're bringing him back for. They're trying to leverage and see if they made a great decision in bringing in Dwayne Haskins. They're going to try to see if Dwayne Haskins can become a professional within an amount of time of Big Ben playing and starting off the season. He's what I would call a first-second option, all right? First-second option meaning that Big Ben is going to be your first option as a starter at the proper price tag. Wonderful. There's the understanding, the familiarity with the offense, with the team, with the city. So you're comfortable with Big Ben. You may not feel as though Big Ben has enough in the tank. So that's why we bring in Dwayne Haskins at a great price tag. We caught him, and he's going to be hungry to be more than what he was in Washington. That's where Haskins is from. There are a lot of reasons why things could have gone wrong, especially adding COVID into the scenario with a young man that hasn't quite figured out what being a professional at the pro level is. So Big Ben buys them time to find out, can we bring Dwayne Haskins along far enough during the course of this season where Ben becomes our second option? And then we put Haskins in and see if we can make this run, because they do have a defense that's good enough to win the Super Bowl. They have an offense that if they get one more developed guy, if Claypool comes on and can actually take that number one spot and be that guy, if they decide to bring Juju back or develop a couple other guys, I think that they're a running back away, a running game away, maybe one lineman away and one receiver away from being where they need to be on offense to be a contender. So I think you keep Ben in place as a first, second option. And I think that's a safe play for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I think you're making some sense, LeVar. Look, at this rate, Ben might be willing to pay the Steelers to come back.
Yes.
And play. I mean, he's desperate to get back there. So I think it's going to be a favorable situation for them financially, as favorable as it can get with his contract. So I've said this all along. If I'm the Steelers, I am pounding the pavement, seeing if I have a better option than Ben Roethlisberger. Can I make a trade to bring in my next quarterback, my next franchise guy? I don't think that's likely. So if I don't have the better option, rather than just hand the team over to the young Dwayne Haskins or certainly Mason Rudolph for a year, I would bring back Ben on a favorable deal. Because here's the thing, the Steelers don't rebuild, they reload. All right, Mike Tomlin in his 14 years, guys, never a losing record. Never. Even Bill Belichick can't say that after what happened last season. Never a losing record in 14 years. Bill Cowher, 15 years before Mike Tomlin, 3 losing seasons. So the Steelers don't just fall to the bottom. All right? They reload. And Ben, to your point, LeVar, gives them a chance to be, I think, a playoff team. Now, I don't think they can contend for the Super Bowl next year. But I do think they could make the playoffs. And while that's not the ultimate goal, that's not bad. You were relevant. What happened to Ben is that people got caught up when they started 11-0. And people started thinking, oh, my God, this is a Super Bowl team. You looked at people's power rankings, and the Steelers were #1 at a point. I never believed they were never that. They weren't great as an 11-0 team. That was awesome that they got to 11-0. It shows heart. It shows determination, execution, and good coaching. But they never were an 11-0 team as far as quality. If I had told you before the season the Steelers will be 12-4 and make the playoffs, you would have been happy. You know what? That's not a bad year. But because it started 11-0 and then the way it ended, everybody's down on the Steelers and on Ben. When Ben, look, he wasn't great, but to your point, LeVar, they had no running game. They were dead last in the league in running.
They have to address the running game.
So get them a rushing attack. Don't throw as much. They threw too much. This was the second most that's Ben's ever thrown in his career at 38 years old. So diversify the offense a little bit. Get more of a running game. Bring Ben back. And if Haskins improves and Ben struggles, you can put Haskins in as a starter at some point. But I'd rather Ben play the whole year and Haskins learn in that building for a year, and he matures, hopefully, and maybe he will be your quarterback going forward after next season.
Okay, so there's so much here. I almost need like a 20-second timeout. You can put Haskins in, Chris? Please stop. No, that's not happening. But here's the interesting story here. So Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers both chirped up this offseason. As soon as Brady wins the Super Bowl, remember, Brady said, give me Gronk, give me AB, let's get Fournette. They get to call the shots in Tampa, Tom Brady. So Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers both a little upset. What's going on with Ben Roethlisberger, who's won 2 Super Bowls? He's just twisting in the wind. The Steelers kind of let him dangle out there. We're like, hey, we're going to kick the tires, as you said, Chris, on Sam Darnold. You know, we're going to see, can we bring in Carr? Do we need to make a move? Ben Roethlisberger, guys, is the reason that team stunk down the stretch. LeVar, don't tell me they need another receiver. They had the best receiving group, I think, in the league. Claypool, Juju, Washington. I mean, they are loaded at receiver. Ben is the problem. Final 7 games, he threw 10 picks. Ben Roethlisberger was terrible down the stretch. Yes, Chris, they started 11-0. The defense was great. They were a Super Bowl contender. They weren't the elite team like the Chiefs, but they started great. Ben was the reason down the stretch they cratered. Now, I know he had the surgery the prior season on the elbow, and it looked it coming down the stretch, okay? This guy's got a lot of wear and tear. He's immobile in the pocket. They really quickened his release, LeVar, because they know he can't move around. So he's just throwing passes. I know he's throwing 40, 50 passes a game. That's not ideal, but they were winning with that until he started making all these terrible mistakes. You look at that Cleveland game. I don't even think we're willing to roll the tape here because I'm not trying to throw Ben under the bus. He was abysmal in a home playoff game favored against the Browns. I mean, he messed his pants in that one, guys. It was ugly. I actually believe Ben Roethlisberger is like what Chris said, basically begging the Steelers, please, guys, bring me back. I can't go out like this. I'm a 2-time Super Bowl winner. LeVar, I don't have as much faith in Ben Roethlisberger as you do. Like, this offensive line, did they lose Pouncey? I think he just retired. And, you know, the offensive line's getting old. I think they have 4 or 5 starters over the age of 30. Listen, it's not morning where I, bash Dak Prescott and Ben Roethlisberger. But for some reason, the producers picked 2 quarterbacks who I just don't believe a lot in right now. And LeVar, you're smiling. You want to come after me. Go for it. But right. Ben Roethlisberger was terrible down the stretch.
There were a lot of drops.
I just want to know what the alternative is.
They just showed.
I just want from Jason.
Go ahead.
I would see what Sam Darnold can do. I just want to know
what the alternative is. I think LeVar and I are saying the same thing. Who's the alternative?
Okay. So, Sam Darnold, the Jets quarterback, and I'm not just trying to get the Jets draft picks, he had nothing. He had the worst offensive skill position players in the league. You put him in that Pittsburgh offense. You give him Claypool and that fleet of receivers. They got a good tight end and dropped him as prime, Eric Ebron.
Can they get Darnold?
Well,
Can
I
they
mean,
get Darnold?
why not?
But what the Steelers don't do is make knee-jerk reaction decisions. They don't do that. They're not going to go out there and get a Deshaun Watson in a blockbuster trade. They just don't. What, Jerome Bettis? Is that the last time they did something to that caliber? So they don't do that. It's a very, very traditionally ran organization, and they do it very sensibly, and they do it the right way. So getting a Dwayne Haskins, he played at Ohio State. You're right next door to Pennsylvania. They're very aware of what he's done during the course of his time in college. When you look at the things that he came up short as a pro, for one, you're talking about a team that's in the I guess the process of changing the culture. You're turning a cruise ship around, not a motorboat, all right? So there are a lot of reasons why Dwayne Haskins could have came up short in an environment where he came from, where he came up short. You put him in that stable environment where, I'll tell you a quick story. I always ask, why is Pittsburgh such a great franchise that does well all the time? And the guy told me, he worked for the Steelers. He said, this is sum it up. I parked at the back of the parking lot. The parking lot is not assigned parking spaces. I parked at the back. I got there like maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes before everything was supposed to start. And I get out of my car and one of the Roonies says, "Hey, good morning to you." And he's like, "Why are you parked here? Like I'm parked here. You should be parked up front." He said, "No, I got here the same time as you. I got to find a parking space where the parking spaces are. I want a better parking space. I got to get here earlier," right? This is the owner of the team. So when you have a mentality where we work together, not against each other, it creates a different type of feeling. It creates a different type of environment. This is the type of environment that a Dwayne Haskins needs, and I think he'll thrive in it. When I look at this receiver situation and I look at what Ben Roethlisberger can bring to the table, one, he can bring stability for that amount of time. Whether you think they were a legit 11-0 team or not, they were 11-0. And in the National Football League, that is very, very difficult to do. So whether you think that was legit or not, it is what it is. But this receiving core has to improve. Claypool has to do better. He disappeared at the end of the year last year. Juju, if he comes back, he's not a number one receiver, so they got to figure out how they're going to use him because he wasn't able to get open when he wasn't under the cover of having AB, commanding all of those double teams. There are schematically things that have to be done differently with this Pittsburgh Steelers team. But in terms of personnel-wise, you definitely got to replace Pouncey. When you have a center, you got to replace that because that's the most important player on your offensive team is your center. And you got to see if you can get Dwayne Haskins to be able to be your starter once you get deeper into the season. That has to be your play if you're bringing Ben Roethlisberger back, or you have to think about drafting a quarterback or trying to get somebody else in free agency. That is the only reason why you would bring Ben Roethlisberger.
What about Jimmy
G?
What about Jimmy G? If they could get him, is that an upgrade from Ben, who, again, he's going to his 19th season? I mean, Jimmy G, Chris, you talk about options. He went to a Super Bowl with a great 49ers defense. Obviously he had Kyle Shanahan calling the shots, but, Jimmy G would fit perfectly in Pittsburgh, would he not?
Jason, I'm with you on trying to get other options. If they could get a Sam Darnold, if they could get a Jimmy Garoppolo, yes, I would go there, if only because of his age. And look, everybody's down on Jimmy G in San Francisco. I think his record there as a starter is 24-8. And if you look at that team, same personnel, with him, they win for the most part. Without him, they lose. Last year, they were 3-3 with him. I think, 3-10 or something, or 7 without him, 3-7. So Jimmy G isn't bad. He's not, Pat Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, but you could do much worse than him. So, yeah, if I could get a Jimmy G or a Sam Darnold, I would go that route. I just don't know that they can do that. And if you can't bring in a guy like that, you mentioned Derek Carr, then you might as well bring Big Ben back for one more year. And I'm not sure, LeVar, if Haskins becomes a starter next year. If Ben plays poorly and Haskins looks good in practice, then sure, he could become that. But ideally for the Steelers, Ben would play okay. They go 10-6, maybe 11-5, make the playoffs, go out in the first or second round, and Haskins matures in the building, in that culture, and shows you something physically as well on the field, and then next season or the season after next, he can be your starter. So I think that would really be the good scenario for the Steelers.
Running the football and playing defense is what Pittsburgh does. They lost Bud Dupree. They lost Devin Bush Jr. That was the deflating of an 11-win team. You can't take away the credit of how strong their defense was and how much it played a part in them winning. Do they sign Bud Dupree back? I don't know. Do they replace that production? I don't know. I think they got to sign Bud Dupree back, and you got to hope that Devin Bush can come back and be healthy as well. I think if you add that element and find a running game and identify another receiver, I think you got to identify one more receiver, and obviously you got to shore up your front with your center. I think that's the difference. I don't think that it is a deciding factor if you have Ben come back one more season.
No mercy.
LeBron James has done everything in his power to help keep the Lakers afloat without AD and Dennis Schroeder in the lineup. And they'll have an opportunity to make up some ground in the standings when they play the Jazz tonight. LA just 1-4 in their last 5, and LeBron started to look a little fatigued despite constant reassurance that he isn't. Not only does Utah have the best record in the league, but they haven't lost a game at home since December 31st. Fox Sports NBA analyst Rick Bucher joins us now. Rick, how important is it for LeBron to snap LA's 3-game skid tonight?
Not important at all. And shout out to the producers who put out those low lights from the game the other night when J-Mac is talking about LeBron carrying the Lakers. That was spot on. J-Mac, you're the guy who's driving this ship, steering it, whatever we want to put on it. And yet you keep talking about LeBron missing AD. Can we just correct something, first of all? It's missing AD and Dennis Schroeder. Put some respect on that Dennis Schroeder name. When it comes to playmakers on this team, he is number 2 only to LeBron James. And guess what? He's going to be back Friday, or is he anticipated that he's going to be back Friday against the Blazers? That's going to make a huge difference. Is there anybody, Utah Jazz or anybody else, that the Lakers should be afraid of? Absolutely not. So that they have to stop this losing streak against the Utah Jazz because what? They have the best record in the Western Conference? I just don't see a purpose behind it. And honestly, I don't see them ending the losing streak. I fully expect that the Utah Jazz are going to make this 4 losses in a row. I think the other element here that we're not taking into account is the fact that this season is different. And it's different in that normally when we get to the All-Star break, we're 2/3 into the season. And if the Lakers were having issues and questions about Anthony Davis's health were happening at the All-Star break in a normal season, it would make sense that maybe we take the temperature and say, are they going to be okay? But we're literally at the midway point of this season. With 35-some games still to go, I just can't see a way in which a game against the Utah Jazz in Salt Lake City, missing 2 of their 5 starters, is reason for alarm if they end up losing the game.
Mm.
Yeah, LeVar, you made a good point yesterday about anytime you have a losing streak, you want to end it. All right, there's a sense of urgency to end it. So I'll give you that. But I'm with Rick for the most part. I mean, come on, look. I do think they'll lose tonight. If they do, it's far from the end of the world. There's no shame to losing to the Utah Jazz without your second and third best players. They're expected to lose. Right. I mean, you got 40 games left. Remember, last year in December, which was about the same place we're at right now, maybe a tad bit earlier than we are right now, they had a 4-game losing streak. Remember in the bubble, they went 3-5. And it looked at times, really through that whole regular season in the bubble, that 8-game stretch, that they couldn't hit the 3 and they couldn't defend the 3. And obviously we know how last season ended. So this is not, some a litmus test for the Lakers. And to that point, even if they win tonight, you shouldn't, get out the pom-poms and let the confetti start flowing and think everything's right in Lakerland. It'll be one of 72. The Jazz are going to lose at some point. They've won 21 of 23, so they're going to lose another game. Maybe they'll take the Lakers lightly without AD and Dennis Schroeder. So it'd be a good win, yes. The Lakers are just 5-7 against teams with winning records. That is the worst record against such teams of the top 7 teams in the West. And obviously a lot of those games came with Anthony Davis. So it'd be a great win. It would boost the confidence of the other guys. But either way, you shouldn't make too much out of what happens tonight.
I'm learning this about you, Mr. Broussard. You are a master of selective qualifiers. Ooh. That's what you do. You're a selective qualifier, and I like it. It's a great technique, and it works very well, especially like in media. And I'm going to learn from you. We're going to talk offline, and I'm going to learn how to use selective qualifying. Slick Rick the Ruler, you used a line in one of your verses one time, and I think it went, hey, young world, the world is yours. Hey, young world, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Jordan Clarkson, drafted in 17, 13,
that way,
and 14. This is a must-win for the Lakers, and I'm going to tell you why. Because these young world babies are growing up into full-grown bulls with horns, all right? So when you have an opportunity to make an example, to set a tone, you do that. You don't say, if we win, we win. But if we lose because there's so much season to be played left. No, because these guys are gunning for the crown. What's the crown? Oh, the crown. Wow. LeBron James, they call him King James. They are gunning for this crown. And right now, with the qualifiers that Chris Broussard just used so well and eloquently, Schroeder is out. AD is out. Well, maybe that means that you don't have your Lancelot with you, King Arthur. So you're going into battle and you're going into war, and you don't have your best swords and shields with you going into these battles. And it always matters. When you win, when you lose, even if it's 100-game seasons that you have in basketball, and it's not as short as football is, like us football players, it always matters. And when you're in a losing streak, Slicks, when you're losing, you gotta fight to stop the bleeding, even if it's just for the mental morale. You know what's the worst thing to do when you lose? Practice. When you go there and you practice and you've lost more than once, it gets hard. And then when you lose more, it gets harder. And then you know what happens? Getting better gets harder. You got to stop the bleeding. You got to stop the losing. And that's why this is a must-win for them against a really good emerging Utah team.
You guys know, I knew LeVar a little bit before the show. We talked at the radio show. But I really like the cut of his jib because
thank you.
I just listened to that and I started thinking, Chris and Rick are missing something here. The Lakers have played the easiest schedule in the NBA to this point. Basketball Reference says easiest schedule in the NBA. And then you start thinking, they have a really good record. They've played an easy schedule. AD's hurt. Oh, man, they lost to the Wiz, and now they got the Jazz. And LeBron is hearing this. He's watching the show. Tomorrow everybody's fired up to watch this show because y'all are going to kill the Lakers when they lose. I am starting to side with LeVar here. I think this game really matters. Frank Vogel is not going to punt because they don't have Schroeder and Anthony Davis. They're going to go in and say, Kuzma, will you play some damn defense?
Come on, Kuzma.
KCP, will you lock up Donovan Mitchell? This game matters. This means something because you don't want to go into, as Rick, you said, second half of the season and say, we're all right, we're fine, we're third in the West. But our schedule's about to get much more difficult. And, AD's not coming to save us. The cavalry's not coming for another 2 or 3 weeks. This game has a lot on the line here. By the way, the spread, I know the gamblers out there, 8, starting to trend toward 8.5, maybe a 9. Lakers are big underdogs here. Broussard and Rick, listen, this game has some bearing. Don't try to punt this as, it's 1 of 72. This game matters.
Okay. Well, Lakers are okay.
You know what? J-Mac is just
I'll
having
let
visions
Rick
of
have
being
at
able to
it
bring
first.
confetti in tomorrow and throw it around because the Lakers pulled off an upset. And LeVar, you can use all of the colorful analogies you want, swords and shields and pistols and whatever. It's not going to make a difference. They're playing in Salt Lake City. They're playing against a team that's never gotten out of the second round. Good for the Utah Jazz that they're doing what they're doing, but they're going to play big. And what can the Lakers not do right now?
Play big.
They can't play big, and they can't play small because they don't have two key pieces to playing small. And look, I'm as guilty of it as anybody else. Every time I look at LeBron James and I go, what's wrong with LeBron James? Like maybe Father Time has finally tapped him on the shoulder. And then LeBron says, oh, no. I've got a fourth gear. I've got a fifth gear. I'm just not going to use it right now. I'm perfectly comfortable not going to my top gear in the middle of February. And so we get around to April and May and June, and suddenly we see, say it with me, we see playoff LeBron. And then suddenly realize once again, he's got more in his bag than we thought he did because how he plays at various times during the regular season. I fully expect that he's not going to kill himself to beat the Utah Jazz. And if it was a must win, if it meant anything, if home court advantage meant something this year, which it doesn't, because let's not forget, we don't have fans in the stands. So even if they slide down the standings and the seating over the next week or so what? The Lakers don't need to be a top 1, 2, or even third seed in order to win another championship. So you can say it's a must win, but the Lakers have to believe it's a must win. LeBron James has to believe it's a must win for us to really see what the Lakers are capable of at this point.
You know, when you have a great qualifier, selective qualifier with a great deflector, wonderful deflector, such as yourself, those two put together equal toxic relationship. That is toxic what you just did, Rick Bucher. It's so toxic. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to have any parts of that. I really don't. I don't feel comfortable with it. Everything you just said, let me tell you something. If you're not getting suited up, if you're not driving to that stadium in Salt Lake City tonight with your headphones on, thinking, I am going to murk these dudes on this hoop court tonight. When I put my socks on and I'm sitting in my locker and I'm making sure that my headband fits perfectly on my head before I go out there on that court as LeBron James or any of those other guys that play for the Lakers. It's okay. We're just going to go out here and let them win. It doesn't matter. I got 4, 5, 6. I got 7 gears. I got 3, 4 gears left. You know what? But it don't matter tonight. I'm going to just go out here and see what I can do. There's no fans in the stands anyway, and I don't know how many people are watching us on TV. So, hey, it doesn't matter. We're just going to go out here and lose. You know, we'll get to the playoffs, and then that's when I'll show everybody who LeBron James is. Come on, Slick Rick. You know that ain't true. Nobody is going into a game with the mindset that, it's okay. I'm going to just chill. You know, they might whoop up on us, embarrass us, but nobody's paying attention. They don't care.
You know what, LeVar?
I don't buy that at all.
Maybe not going in, but at some point during the game, if it's not there and winnable, LeBron has made business decisions before.
I understand that. But they're going to have to force them to make a business decision. And that, to me, that's why this is a must-win. Don't go into it having to make a business decision by the time you get to the end of the third quarter. That's all I'm saying.
LeVar and J-Mac, you're confusing what we're saying. We're not saying the Lakers are conceding. We're not saying they're going out there like, we're not going to win tonight. We're just going to go through the motions. No, they very well could try their best. And without Anthony Davis and Dennis Schroeder in Salt Lake City, they could lose.
I'm going to point out your qualifiers every time.
And now, LeVar, I love what you're saying. All right. If I was Frank Vogel, I would bring you into the locker room pregame and let you have at it. Let you give a pregame speech about how this is an absolute must-win. Everything is on the line. Now, the players, as they're tying their sneakers, they might be looking at you like, dude, we play 72 games, not 16. Relax, all right? Ooh. But still, I love your fervor. But it is February. It is 1 of 72.
Okay. That's it. No mercy. Doncic's late-game heroics gave Dallas the win over Boston last night. Despite the absence of injured Kristaps Porzingis, Luka hit the go-ahead three with 15 seconds left. Then, after Jaylen Brown tied the score with 9 seconds left, Luka drained a step-back 28-footer. This all came after Mark Cuban denied a report from earlier in the day that the Mavs were allegedly, quote, gauging the trade market for Kristaps Porzingis. Chris, should Dallas try to build a championship team around Luka and Porzingis?
Look, I understand where Mark Cuban and Rick Carlisle also denied it. I get where they're coming from. They have to go out there publicly and deny it. But the fact is this. If the Dallas Mavericks front office is not working the phones quietly to see what Porzingis' value is on the market. In fact, if they're not doing that with everybody not named Luka Doncic, then they're not doing their job. It's as simple as that. And I really like Kristaps Porzingis. I love his game. 7'3", shoots the three, rebounds fairly well, can block shots. I mean, he's a very good player, but he's got one major problem. He can't stay healthy. He can't. I mean, look at this. He missed, and this is not 1 or 2 years. This is his entire career. He missed 16 games his second year in New York, 34 games his third year in New York, the entire season of 2018-2019, 18 games he missed last year, and this year he's already missed 13. And remember last year's playoffs, he missed 3 of the 6 games. They may have beaten the Clippers had Kristaps Porzingis been healthy. So my point is, I'm not giving Porzingis away. I'm not shopping him. I'm not looking to get rid of him. But open to trading him, if I got equal value, you have to be. Because as good as KP is, he just can't stay on the court. I mean, heck, we saw that last night too. And that's the problem with him. That's a great duo if KP's healthy. But can I count on him being healthy? He's had 2 knee surgeries as well. So that's my only concern with Porzingis. So again, I'm working the phones. I'm seeing what his value is, but I'm not just giving him away or shopping him. I'm doing my due diligence.
Chris, he actually has 2 problems. One is that he can't stay healthy, as you illustrated. And the second is that he's being paid like a max salary player. That's what he has. And while his numbers are good, and as you said, he's a very good player, is he a great player? I don't put him in that category. You guys have probably heard me say it before. Stars are guys who get their numbers. Superstars are guys who get their numbers and they get other guys' numbers. Porzingis hasn't shown me a game that necessarily makes the other guys around him better. And when it comes to being paired with Luka Doncic, Luka is an offensive weapon, mastermind. But he's not all that great defensively. And while Porzingis' defensive numbers are good, he's a situational defensive player. Like, I've seen him in matchups where he's clearly intimidated, where there are certain guys that to look at Porzingis and go, oh, it's my time to eat. This is going to be my night. If I am building around a guy, especially a big, who's supposed to be the backbone of my defense because my other guy is my offensive weapon, that's not going to work if we're going for a championship. And let's face it, the Mavs might have been a dark horse contender for a championship this year. We found out way different. Same with Luka Doncic's chances of winning MVP. All that's by the boards. If they can move Porzingis and that contract, I say you do it. And to your point, if they're not exploring that, if they can't find a sucker on the vine for that deal that started last season, then they are missing the boat, because I do not want to grow old with Kristaps Porzingis' contract.
Yeah, for me, I think it's the height. We talk about this Lakers team, and we're talking about the West. And you made the point, Rick, right? They have to be a fast transition team, play small to have success. Well, when you think about Dallas, they're a long team. They got a bunch of long guys, and I think that they're seduced by height. I mean, when you think historically, that's where Sean Bradley played a lot of his best years, was in Dallas, right? They love having long guys, right? So you got Bobo in there, over 7 foot, right? You got Porzingis in there, he's over 7 foot. I know he gets hurt and he stays hurt, but can he play? Can he give me minutes? Can we give him spot minutes? Can we give him load management? Even if he's not the most elite of elite, if I have that length and that height, this isn't a small running team. They do sets. They set Luka up. They create shots in half-court sets. To me, the reason why it's attractive to keep him, if you're going to keep him, is because of what you have being closer to the basket and allowing Luka to work and operate wherever he wants to work and operate on the court. So it's more or less looking at these guys as they're all role players, and our style of role player is a tall, long, create bad shots, alter shots type of guys. And I think that that's probably what they're looking at as the biggest value of having these type of guys on their team. And that's probably why it's difficult to say we want to let this type of length of a basketball player that fits our style, let them go in a trade.
Yeah, and the problem is, guys, they don't have any first-round picks to attach. Next year's pick is with the Knicks. They can't – it's going to be difficult, Rick, right? I think we'd all agree, to unload Porzingis. You got to find a GM really asleep at the wheel, willing to take on that deal. I'd love to see Bradley Beal next to Luka Doncic, but there's like no scenario where that's even humanly possible. They would destroy in the West. The real problem with Dallas is, they're ninth in the West. A 500 team. If Porzingis can only play half the games the rest of the way, and their other pickup, Josh Richardson, has been a nightmare. I mean, he's a shooting guard who can't shoot. He's at 31% from three. Like, they lost that trade badly, giving up Seth Curry. That was just a horrible deal. So Dallas is in a tough spot. And it's funny because I think, guys, last summer we were like, ooh, Dallas, everybody's going to want to play next to Luka. Maybe they get Giannis next to Luka. Like, everybody's going to want to play with him. And all of a sudden it's like, oof. They're not really built to contend. Like, they better get it together to keep Luka in Dallas long term, because this does not look like a team that's remotely close to being one of the better teams in the West.
Yeah, there's also
I think they'll play better.
Go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead, Rick. Go ahead. Well, I think they'll play better in the second half of the season. I think they'll play better in the second half of the season. They've already played better. Luka's got his three-point stroke down. We saw that last night, obviously. So I expect improvement. I expect them to move up toward that top 8 for sure. Here's the thing with Porzingis, though. He's probably a third best, even if he were healthy. He's probably the third best player on a championship-type team. And that would be great because maybe you can get that second guy. The problem, as Rick brought up, is he's paid like a first or second guy. So that is a problem with him as well. So, look, again, they're not going to give him away. But if you can find equal value, then I think you can move on from him for sure.
He'd be a great fit for the Lakers.
The other challenge here is there's been a bad vibe around this team. From what I've heard, and some of it's just disgruntlement because they were supposed to be a lot better than they were. But I'm watching very closely the relationship between Rick Carlisle and Luka Doncic, because Doncic is the type of offensive player who likes to run the show. And Rick Carlisle is the kind of coach who likes to run the show. And I don't want to read too much into this, but if you guys go back and you look at when Doncic hit the game winner the other night, look at Rick Carlisle on the sideline. Oh, no. He's right there. Doncic hits it, and he turns the other way and walks down the floor. Now, maybe there was something to consider. Maybe he had something to think about. But in a normal circumstance, I would have expected some kind of
emotion,
reaction, connection between the two of them. And there's none of it. So when he comes, he hits this shot, bang. This is the game winner, right? Oh, what? Wait a minute. Where's my coach? Where's he? Oh, I'm going to turn and I'm going to walk down. Like, there's no interaction between these two. And again, I'm not trying to make something that's...
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. But that's exactly what you're doing.
He was clapping, Rick. He was clapping.
He was going the other way.
While he was walking away.
Look, I know the freedom that Doncic wants. And and Carlisle sometimes it's just a matter of who's really running the ship, who's the one who's going to make the decisions here in how we play. And Doncic wants to play an open style. LeVar, to your point, they would be better, I think, playing fast and playing faster with Doncic. But generally, that's not how they play. And I would dare say that may even be part of why Josh Richardson is struggling, because he would play better in an up-tempo, playing fast system. So it's just something I want to keep an eye on because of the dynamic and the makeup of those two guys.
No mercy. And title race coming down to the wire. The third-ranked Michigan Wolverines go head-to-head with Trace Jackson-Davis and Indiana. That's Saturday, 11:30 Eastern on Fox and the Fox Sports app. The NBA announced the 2021 All-Star Game reserves yesterday, as selected by the league's coaches. And even though Damian Lillard wasn't voted in as a starter by fans, players, and media, he and James Harden headlined the list of reserves. At 20 years old, Zion Williamson became the fourth youngest All-Star behind Kobe, LeBron, and Magic. Rick, what's your biggest takeaway from the All-Star reserves?
There's two, but I'll start with the first one being that NBA players are susceptible to fake outrage on social media as anybody else, because all I'm seeing from LeBron James and all the stars is Devin Booker, most disrespected player in the league. How could he not be an all-star? It's as simple as that. Yeah, okay, let's finish the second part of that. Why isn't he an all-star? Well, there's an all-star from the Phoenix Suns. Who's that all-star? Oh, it's Chris Paul. It's LeBron James, one of LeBron James's boys. So if we're going to say that Devin Booker deserves to be an all-star, then the suggestion is who's going to be out? Should he be an all-star ahead of Chris Paul? Why don't we finish the tweet? You still had enough characters that you could have mentioned he deserved to be the all-star for the Suns over Chris Paul, but we didn't do that. It's an old rule. If you're going to complain about a guy who didn't make the all-star team, then you got to point out the guy that he should have been on there instead of. And that didn't happen here. And I wonder why that is. I don't like to traffic in conspiracy theories, but fellas, you're going to complain about Devin Booker not being an all-star, then you got to call out your boy Chris Paul and say, you know what, just because you're the president of the Players Association and you fought to have an all-star game in the first place doesn't necessarily mean that you should be an all-star.
Yeah, I got some takeaways, too. First, let me say this. I've been saying this for years. Apparently, it's falling on deaf ears. I think they should have 15 All-Stars in each conference. 12 was fine for 24 teams or less, but now you got 30 teams. It's hard to narrow it down to 12, so you always have snubs, which is fun, by the way, the snubs. But here, look, let me go to the East. I got to be honest. I can't argue with the Eastern Conference reserves for the most part. I was surprised that Nikola Vucevic of Orlando made it. The Orlando's 13-19, but his numbers are great. 24 points, almost 12 rebounds, 40% from three. But I thought Domantas Sabonis would make it over him. And I think Sabonis deserved it. Indiana's playing well. They're the fourth seed. And Sabonis is 21-11, 6 assists. I mean, he's playing great basketball. So that's my biggest snub in the East. to get to Devin Booker, who everybody's talking about, look, I think you could talk about DeMar DeRozan, too. San Antonio's winning. DeRozan's playing well. But I get it. And I really love Devin Booker's game. But if I had to pick one of the Suns to make the team, I've got to go with Chris Paul. Chris is leading them in assists with 8 a game. He's leading them in PER. He's giving you almost 17 points a game. Yes, Devin's their leading scorer. But this year, they are 20-10. Last year at this time, without Chris Paul, they were 11-20. And I know Phoenix looked great in the bubble, and everybody thinks that would have carried over. Who knows? Miami looked great in the bubble. That didn't carry over. So the bubble was a strange place. So I think Chris Paul does deserve to be an all-star, slightly over Devin Booker. Look, Booker may get in when Anthony Davis is removed because of injury. Hopefully that happens because he does deserve it. Zion's the other guy. People are wondering, does he really deserve to win? New Orleans is not winning. Should he be in there? I'm glad he's in there. I wouldn't have thrown a hissy fit if he didn't make it. But that dude is a scorer supreme. I mean, he just is. He's leading the league in points in the paint, 25 points a game. He needs to improve his rebounding and his defense. I like that they've put the ball in his hands because he actually is a pretty good playmaker, got some court vision. That's helped them improve and win 8 of their last 15. So I got no problem with Zion being there because we know he's going to be there for the next 10 to 12 years at least. So I think for the most part, I'm cool with the way the coaches did this.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway, when you look at Devin Booker getting snubbed, I think it is a legit snub. They're fifth in the West, and they're playing great basketball, and a lot of it is largely in part of Devin Booker. I also would say Devin Booker is a young and budding star. So when you look at it, that takes me to the East. Another takeaway was the amount of first and second appearance All-Star reserves selections. There were 5 out of 7, which I thought was pretty interesting. Means that there may be a possible starting of the changing of the guard. You gotta at some point, I know this might sound crazy. I know this. And you touched on this the other day. Look, Father Time is a free agent that he's on every team's roster, right? So as Father Time begins to catch up to the Chris Pauls who are deserving of being in the All-Star game, the perennial All-Star appearance guys, which we all know, once you become so popular, you're going, no matter what your stats are, no matter what it is. It was like that with the Pro Bowl. Guys are going to go that shouldn't necessarily be there, but they're there because of their reputations. Well, to see that many first-time, second-time reserves, and it was at 57%. There was 8 total of first and second appearances as All-Star reserve selections. It says to me that my takeaway, you're having to start to transition to those younger guys and start to put the spotlight on them so that you don't lose out too bad when Father Time finally comes and punches the cards of some of these guys that we've grown to love so much through the years watching the basketball game.
All right, I'll be brief because I want to get to the Chris versus Rick steel cage match over Devin Booker and Chris Paul. My 2 takeaways, I love Zach LaVine and Zion being in the All-Star game. This is a showcase for fans. This is a dunk-a-thon, all alley-oops. It's fun. I want to see guys that can jump out of the gym. I know Trae Young's a little upset he didn't make it. Hey, man, there's always next year. All right, Chris and Rick, I just don't understand how there's a case for Chris Paul over Devin Booker. I don't know who wants to take it away first, but Devin Booker needs to be in this game. Chris Paul has not earned it, man. He just hasn't.
This is not Chris versus Rick. This is Chris and Rick versus J-Mac. Because I don't have a problem with Chris Paul being their all-star selection because the only reason that they're getting an all-star is because of their record. And Chris Paul is the biggest reason why that record is ultimately different. So I don't have an issue with Chris Paul being their all-star selection. I have a problem with NBA players crying about Devin Booker not being the selection and not identifying why he's not the selection.
Who paying you? Who paying you, Rick? Who's paying you?
Look,
Devin Booker, stand up.
Y'all watch, if if you watch the Suns play, Rick is right on the money. And this is nothing against Devin Booker. Devin Booker is a legitimate all-star caliber player. And if he were in the East, he's probably in the all-star game, maybe not even just once, but a couple of times. But in the West, it's tough. And look at who am you taking off? You don't take off Chris Paul. You certainly don't take off Lillard and Donovan Mitchell. So like I said, he may get in because Anthony Davis is hurt.
Right.
But come on, who am I taking off?
But even not
Fair
hurt,
point.
like Anthony Davis, honestly, with games missed, with where his numbers are, with how he's played this season, is he really an all-star? I mean, talent-wise he is, maybe record-wise with the Lakers, but San Antonio, you're going to put Zion in. They're not even in the playoff picture. And you're going to have nobody from San Antonio as the 5th seed represented.
Y'all worked
and you're
very
going to have
well
Anthony
on this
Davis in
segment.
there.
You two worked very well on this
the last
segment.
takeaway is it matters who your coach is. Like,
Great job. You guys
Sabonis deserves
worked
to be an
very
all-star.
well.
His numbers are the same as last year. Julius Randle, first-time all-star. Who's his coach? Tom Thibodeau. In those coaches' conversations, who's going to carry more weight? Nate Bjorken, who's the brand new out-of-the-box coach for Indiana, or Tom Tibbs Thibodeau in New York? That, to me, is an influence. And by the way, Stan Van Gundy is going to have to explain something to Brandon Ingram as why he's stumped for Zion Williamson, because Ingram was an all-star last year and had almost the same identical numbers. So I'm Brandon. I got a little side-eye, like, hey, what happened to me?
It's going to be
I thought
spicy.
I was the resident all-star.
Rick is just
Spicy
stirring
down
up
in New
all
Orleans,
this
huh?
coach drama. Oh, Stan Van Gundy, Rick Carlisle. Maybe next Rick will do more.
No mercy.
The Brooklyn Nets expect Kevin Durant to return from his strained left hammy before the All-Star break. Durant has missed 5 straight games, but his team hasn't dropped a game in his absence, including a win over Sacramento last night. According to Steve Nash, the Nets won't put any pressure on KD and are not trying to rush him back in any capacity. Chris, do the Nets need to bring back KD into the mix before the All-Star break?
Well, obviously they don't need him back to play well and win games, but they do need to get their big 3 on the floor as much as possible. It's just as simple as that. And I understand that Kevin Durant is easier to drop in a lineup than maybe any superstar in the league just because of the nature of his game and his skill set. However, it still is an adjustment to drop a 30-point score onto a team because he's going to take 18 to 22 shots. That's going to take shots away from other players, mainly the role players. And, so things will have to change. Steve Nash has to get used to his rotation with Durant on the floor. How do the Nets look defensively with Durant on the floor? So, they've played 7 games together. They're 3 stars. And as impressed as I am with them, and I'm very impressed with Brooklyn, I cannot imagine them stepping into the playoffs having played 21, 22 games together as the big 3 and winning the championship. It's just hard to fathom. It's just something that's never been done in the history of basketball. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's hard to think they would win. So if I'm the Nets, I want to get my 3 superstars playing as many of these games going forward as possible. I'm not sending anybody out just randomly. If they're legitimately hurt, fine, but I got to get those guys on the floor. So for that reason, yeah, they need to play the big 3 together.
It would be hypocritical for me to say that this is an important thing after saying that the Lakers playing the Utah Jazz in February isn't all that important. So I can't go to the wall and say, absolutely, KD has to come back and play before the All-Star break. But to Chris's point, yeah, there's some things to be worked out here. And I know there's kumbaya among the big 3 in terms of sharing the ball and sharing shots and all of that. The reality is the longer KD's out and the more comfortable Kyrie gets, taking 25, 30 shots a game, the harder it is to put that horse back in the barn and say, you know what, there are going to be nights where you're only going to get 17 or 18, especially if they're having success. It's going to be, well, wait a minute. Why do we have to rework this thing? And again, I believe that they can have a meeting of minds, and offensively they can straighten it out. The most important thing is, how good can they be defensively? And again, the Nets fans out there who've hammered me for bringing this up, their defensive rating. Look, yeah, they've turned it on at times. But defense and playing defense is a discipline. You can't just do it for 6 minutes, 8 minutes. You can do it during the regular season and win games that way when you're as offensively potent as they are. But when you get into playoff games, you have to have the mental toughness to play defense for long, long stretches when your offense may not be spot on. And they need to develop that muscle collectively over the course of the season. I can't just see it at moments and say they're capable of it. They need to believe in it. They need to believe that they can win games with their defense, because what we've seen is that, it's a tried and true thing. But the reality is, you're playing for a championship. There are times where your defense is going to have to carry you. The offense against the best of the best isn't always going to click. They need to develop that and that belief in themselves that they're capable of playing that way. And the more opportunity they get, the better.
I was walking down the aisle and I saw the Rick Bucher Frosted Flakes and the Chris Broussard Fruity Pebbles, and I didn't buy it. I didn't grab the boxes. I didn't want that cereal today. I don't want it. I'm not going to take it. I like how you saved Chris Broussard, because I was going to spank him because he did say something totally different for the Lakers and what the Lakers need to do. And it ain't no must-win situation, and they don't need to have this and all that. But yet we got to have KD out there with Kyrie and James Harden as much as possible. I found that to be a little bit
Our
peculiar.
boxes are together for a reason, LeVar.
Hey, listen, I don't know which one of y'all is Kobe and Shaq in this situation, who's the down low force and who's the guy up top that's facilitating. I don't know. It looked like, Rick, you were Kobe right there. But what I'm going to say right here with my man J-Mac, because I know he's with me, is that in this situation, basketball is one of those sports where as you're getting healthier, you can simulate a physical practice. You can simulate what your body's going to have to go through going up and down the court, shots-wise, running to play defense, running to play offense. One thing's for certain, if there's a team that we're looking at in today's NBA right now that could get away with not being a prolific defensive shutdown team, it's the Brooklyn Nets. This situation right here with KD coming back is purely KD wanting to come back and contribute. It's not because they need the wins. It's not because they need to play together and it's going to be hard to put that Kyrie Irving horse back in the barn after he gets shooting all them shots. That's not what this is. KD is watching his team ball out. They're having fun. That everybody thought that, how can James Harden come to Brooklyn and be what he needs to be? He's been a cancer everywhere else he's been, and nobody does well. He's not going to dish the ball off. He's not going to be a guy that facilitates and takes less shots. But he is. He has been that guy. Assist guy, assist leader? Whoa. Okay, so when KD comes back, KD's just sitting there like, man, I want to get some of this too. I want to get in the mix. 4 games before All-Star break, I just want to get back on the court with my boys. It could just be as simple as that. KD just wants to get back on the court. That's it. There's no tinfoil theory, conspiracy theory, X-Files, all that stuff. There's nothing crazy here. KD just wants to play, and I think he's enjoying watching those guys play. He wants to get some of that. No rush. It'll happen when it happens, and there will be enough shots and enough assists and enough shine to go around for all of them.
I mostly agree with Broussard that dropping KD in is not going to be a problem. He'll fit in seamlessly. And, Rick made a good point about Kyrie Irving having to take a step back. That's I think the number one storyline to watch in the second half of the season. Once KD's back, how cool is Kyrie going to be being the third wheel? But I also want to point out the Nets quietly waived a couple players yesterday, and they're going to start to make some moves here. I would not be surprised if they try to get in the Boogie Cousins situation. They need to get bigger on the inside. And so, Rick, I do believe there is going to be a lot of tinkering going on with the Nets here over the next month or two. And, I do believe, Chris, they're going to probably go into the postseason. My guess would be under 15 games together for KD, Harden, and Kyrie Irving. I would not be surprised if they're just messing around, resting guys. Because, listen, we know they're going to coast in the first round of the playoffs. Second round will be a bit of a challenge. And in the finals, probably against, the Bucks or the 76ers. I'm just telling you, the Nets are going to be a work in progress the rest of the season. I don't think it's a massive issue, though.
J-Mac, are you aware is there going to be another shutdown? Do you know of something that's going to happen that they're only going to get 14 games in?
What's the rush? He's coming off an Achilles. He's got a hamstring now. Like, what are we doing? Why are we rushing Kevin Durant back?
J-Mac, they played 7 games in the first half, and Harden wasn't there for a while. Right. Kyrie went AWOL, and KD's been out with COVID and a hamstring. You think they only going to play the same amount of games over the second half of the season? Let me address LeVar first and then get back to J-Mac. LeVar,
yes.
The Lakers have won a championship together.
Fair.
Okay?
Fair enough.
Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving have played 7 games together.
Fair enough.
So it's a big difference.
It's a new team.
I can't, yes,
it's
they need
a new
to
team,
be on
Chris
the court.
Broussard.
I'm not saying...
That is not the same team. That Lakers team is different.
But your 2 stars, your 2 engines are the same. Okay. And that's all. And then most of the role players, not all, but most of the role players, coach is the same. They got a new coach, not only a new coach, but a first-year coach at any level. All right? They got 3 superstars that have to blend their game together. They have to figure out how they're going to play on the defensive end. And I'm not saying it's a must that they come back in the 4 games before the All-Star break, but J-Mac, they had better be on the court more than 8 times over the second half of the season. Are you crazy? Steve Nash and Mike D'Antoni better not be thinking the way you are. That would be a travesty. That would be a fireable offense if they think they can play those guys 8 times together over the last 40 games and get to the finals? No. They better be playing them together as much as possible.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get past my hunger after LeVar took us down the cereal aisle and get back on this. But to your point, Chris, I think this is a really important element here, which is it's as important for Steve Nash and the coaching staff to have KD back in the mix, not to figure out how those 3 are going to play, but how are you going to utilize the rest of the roster in playing those 3 guys? Who are the role players that you're going to fit in with them? How many minutes are they going to get? What is your rotation? This is your first time through the mill with this crew. And for Steve Nash to figure that out and have the confidence of those 3 stars going into the postseason, we know how we want to play and we know who we want to play. I think that's all vital discovery for the Nets, since we're putting the bar as high as we are. This isn't like they're going to make the playoffs and they're going to win like they're supposed to be in the finals. They're arguably supposed to potentially win a championship. That is no easy road when you're putting together a team for the first time. Consider as good as the Miami Heat were when they put the superstars together down there. It took them a year. It took them a run to be able to ultimately figure it all out. And so that's what the Nets are facing in this situation. And then throw in the fact that you don't have practice like you normally do and all the COVID uncertainty. I think the more I think about it, the sooner they can get KD back, the better off they will be.
Yeah, Kyrie said they don't need a coach. I think they'll be fine. We'll see you tomorrow, Rick. No mercy. The Cowboys and Dak Prescott reportedly haven't made any substantial progress toward a long-term contract extension ahead of the 2021 NFL season. One insider says it, quote, feels like there's a very long way to go. Dallas has until March 9th to place the tag on Dak for a second straight season, which gives the two sides until July to discuss a long-term deal. And Dak might have more leverage this offseason since the cap-strapped Cowboys would have to pay him $37.7 million if he plays under the franchise tag in 2021. Fox Sports NFL analyst Greg Jennings is now with us. Greg, will Dallas regret it if they don't lock up Dak long-term this offseason?
Dallas will absolutely regret that. And I'm going to be direct. This is going to fall solely on the shoulders of Jerry Jones. And I'm going to look at this from a different angle. I truly believe that this is all about Jerry Jones and his arrogance when it comes to Dak Prescott. And why do I say that? This is why. When you think about Jerry Jones and Dak Prescott and their relationship and all that has been thus far, I believe Jerry Jones thought that Dak Prescott would comply. There wouldn't be an issue getting this deal done when they first started. Why is that? He was a fourth-round guy. You know what? We gave you your shot. We let Romo go. Romo was our guy, and we picked you over Romo. And so now you're our guy. We give you an opportunity to put that star on the side of your helmet and make a name for yourself. You've been great, but you haven't. You're not a first-round guy. We know we're going to give you some money, but it's not going to be top tier because we have supported you with so many other guys. You know what? We've even locked arms. Dak Prescott has done everything right. We locked arms. We've stood out on the field and took a knee together, and you were right by my side. You've been the voice in the locker room. You've said everything I needed you to say. Dak Prescott has done everything Jerry Jones has asked, and this organization has asked of him.
That's personal.
Now,
that's personal. That ain't business, G.
But now Dak Prescott is saying, no, that's cool, and that's great. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to be a professional. But these are my desires. This is my demand. This is what I want when it comes to contract length. And that seems to be the hiccup right here where they can't come to terms and meet in the middle. When Dak Prescott feels like he's that guy and he's worth every penny, and Jerry Jones is saying, wait, I told you I would take care of you. I told you. He thought that this would be able to be resolved a lot smoother than it has, obviously. A lot smoother than what we've seen. I don't think it gets done. And I think it solely falls on the shoulder and the arrogance of Jerry Jones thinking he's the greatest mind in football. He's been successful. He's done some great things. But as of late, after those 3 Super Bowl runs and those championship teams, what have we seen Dallas do? Nothing. And it's solely on the shoulders of Jerry Jones.
I like where you're coming from. I want to take the time to address you properly, G&J. When you look at the market, and I know, Chris Broussard, you're going to argue, it's the market. That's what the market calls for. You got to pay him, even if he's not as good as we think he is, because he's next up in line. Well, here's an interesting tidbit. Highest paid QBs, Pat Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Ben Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff, and Deshaun Watson. Out of those names, there's only one name that you can make the argument in comparison with Dak Prescott, and Dak Prescott is not as good a quarterback as that player, and that's Deshaun Watson. The only reason why they're comparable, do you guys know why they're the only ones that are comparable? I'll give you a second. No Super Bowls.
No Super Bowls, correct.
All right. The rest of those guys have either won a Super Bowl or have been in the Super Bowl. It's justifiable to pay that money as next. Jared Goff, you can use that argument, Chris Broussard. You know why? Because he isn't as good as the money says, but the market said to pay him. You know why? Justifiably so. You went to the Super Bowl. All right. But this guy has not even sniffed being great in terms of winning when winning has needed to happen and getting to that next level. And I'll pose this question on you guys. I'll pose this because I think this justifies it all. If I'm Jerry Jones and I have a number that I have in mind that I'm going to pay my quarterback, the quarterback that I like, that I would love to have as my quarterback of this team moving forward, am I looking at my current staff roster today and thinking that in a win-now mentality that our window is still open to win with this personnel that we have right now. If you are being honest with yourself while you are looking in the mirror, what is that answer? I'm going to answer it for you. No, no, and no. They are not a Super Bowl contending team today. So therefore, why would I pay $40 million plus a year in salary and bonus money and guarantee that for one of the largest contracts in the game for a quarterback that isn't even taking me to the next level, and I have a personnel problem where we're not a Super Bowl contending team today? It's not a wise move, and I don't see them making that move.
LeVar, look, if I agree with you that when Jerry Jones looks at his roster, he says, we're garbage. We're not going to be
I didn't say
good.
garbage.
We need
I
to
didn't say
rebuild.
garbage.
Then I would agree with
but
you.
They are far from being a Super Bowl contender. True?
I don't think that's how Jerry Jones looks at it.
Oh.
I think Jerry Jones looks at that roster like a lot of other people before this season who predicted the Cowboys would reach the Super Bowl. And I think he looks at it like that. Like when we get our offensive line healthy, he says when we get our offensive line healthy, when we get Dak back, when we get our receiving core is already top flight.
There you go, qualifying.
When the defense gets healthy, I got to fix the defense. He didn't bring Mike McCarthy in to rebuild. He thinks they can win now.
Rebuild. Wait, what do you mean
No, he's not rebuilding.
The offensive line is done. They got to redo the offensive line.
They've been rebuilding for 25 years, LeVar. They've been rebuilding for a quarter century.
Your offensive line, those days, Lyell and all those guys, is done. It's done. You got to rebuild your offensive line.
Yes.
You got the injuries, they're plagued, they're getting older. It's done. Your backfield, Ezekiel Elliott, he might be done. We saw his best days. Might be done. Tony Pollard, you going to the Super Bowl with Tony Pollard. Good luck there. Shouts out to you, Tony Pollard, but good luck there.
Why not?
You got some pretty decent guys at receiver's position. All right, you got Amari. You brought in CD. You got a nice-looking receiving core there. I got it. But this is on your defense. You got some guys, Jalen and all those guys. You got some players on that side, DeMarcus. You got guys, but they're not that good. They're not that good. They're not a Super Bowl. They are not a Super Bowl contending team.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But
so why are you paying Super Bowl contending money to win now?
LeVar, since when you played in this league, did you ever care about the success of the team when it comes to wins and losses and you're trying to sign your deal? You didn't. You cared about your stats.
That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. I've restructured.
LeVar,
I had restructured 2 or 3 times for us to be able to sign free agents.
No. I'm not talking about a restructure. I'm talking about when you're trying to get paid. You thought about that? No, you didn't. You thought about, look.
I might have been a little different. I was the face of the franchise. I might have handled it a little differently, Greg. I always put the team
Prescott
first.
Right now
I wanted to win.
The face of that franchise.
I wanted to win.
We all thought it was Ezekiel Elliott. It is not. That was proven. It is Dak Prescott.
But they paid him like he was.
They need Dak Prescott. I understand all of that. And what I'm saying is Jerry Jones, in my belief, he thought that he would be able to get Dak Prescott to simply comply.
Correct.
And shake his head in agreement and agree to terms to a deal that he put out there and that they proposed. That has not happened.
I agree with that.
No mercy. Art Rooney II said he met with Ben Roethlisberger yesterday and announced they had a productive meeting, and the team is looking forward to bringing the QB back. Big Ben currently has a $41 million cap hit for next year, highest in the entire league, but he seems willing to adjust his contract. Roethlisberger's agent said the desire to return is mutual, saying, quote, they lost steam down the stretch, and that doesn't sit well with him. So the fire burns strong, and there is plenty of gas left in the tank. Greg, do you think Big Ben has another good year in the tank?
I don't.
Oh my gosh!
Good year in the tank. LeVar, relax.
All right, come on.
Relax.
Come on, I'm sorry.
We saw the road and the path that Big Ben was going down towards the end of this regular season into the playoffs. it reared its ugly head. He doesn't want to throw the ball down the field. I think this is a good decision for the Pittsburgh Steelers because you keep a veteran in your locker room who you have Mason Rudolph, who you know is not your guy, or you're uncertain in pulling the trigger and saying that that's your guy. You bring in Dwayne Haskins, a guy who's had some troubles off the field, hasn't shown that level of maturity. Obviously, Big Ben has had his own issues throughout the course of his career off the field, but he's matured into a great player. He's always been that. And so he can learn some things. I think you have a good nucleus there and you can work some things out. I don't think this is a team that's going to be a contender. They will be great. They will be good because of Mike Tomlin. That's what he does. He finds a way to make things happen. I just don't think it's going to be a contending team for the Super Bowl because of Big Ben Roethlisberger.
Wow.
Yeah, look, I think it was the right move. I mean, who else were you going to throw in there? Mason Rudolph, Dwayne Haskins isn't ready. Let's get him in the building for a year or at least 6 months and help him mature. Maybe he can be the guy a year from now. But with that defense, I want to get a running game. Mm-hmm. They got good receivers. Mm-hmm. And I think they can balance out the offense a little bit more. I think they could be maybe a playoff team, but I certainly think they can have a solid season. That's it. He's not leading them to their 7th Super Bowl. We all know that. But rather than go downhill with Mason Rudolph, have a good, solid season. Hopefully Haskins matures, and then you pathway to him for the next season.
Yeah, but Chris, my only issue is, you want to thread the needle with Roethlisberger. You don't want to keep him too long, and you want to build for the future. And they have a team, again, 11-0 to start last year. The defense is pretty young. Minka Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, they've got playmakers all over the field. Ben is the problem. I mean, they really need him to take a significant pay cut, if possible, spread that money out over multiple years. This idea that Haskins is the solution, guys, let's just perish that thought. They're just throwing him a lifeline because they feel bad, and LeVar is going to pick up for his Washington guy here in a sec. But Dwayne Haskins is not the answer. Sam Darnold would make much more sense. I think kick the tires with Jimmy G, Derek Carr, look around the league, because this is a playoff team, Chris. Make no mistake, they have the 5th best odds in the AFC. This is a playoff team. You just need to figure out how you handle Ben as he transitions out of the league.
You want to get Bud Dupree re-signed. Yeah. You want to get a center that can come in and be what you've always had since Mike Webster in Pittsburgh, is have an anchor center for your offensive line. You want to shore up your running game. Is it Connor? Is it McFarland? Is it these guys that are in the backfield that are there now? I think they're talented enough, but something fell off and disconnected. The signal was broken in terms of having a strong running game. That is what we judge the Pittsburgh Steelers on, having a strong running attack, developing their receivers. They've always developed receivers, and having a strong defense. You get Devin Bush back next year. If you can get Dupree back, you want to sign these important free agents. You bring Big Ben back at an affordable cost, an affordable rate. You're able to do that as he plays. You mentioned off-field problems with Dwayne Haskins. Well, I remember a young Ben Roethlisberger probably had some off-the-field situations as well that could probably shed some really good light on redemption and moving forward, even though he had great leaders in Jerome Bettis and other guys, Mark Bruner, and all these guys that played on that team during his younger days. Well, Mark Bruner I don't think was there, but definitely Jerome Bettis was his guy. So to me, I think that this is a great situation for Dwayne Haskins. Ben Roethlisberger buys you time to see what's going to take place with Dwayne Haskins, and knowing that that's the situation that you have, I think you ride it out and see what happens, because this is a good enough team personnel-wise where you can give Ben at a great rate, a great price. You can get that time to see if Haskins is your guy with Mason Rudolph behind that.
No mercy. J.J. Watt is keeping the mystery alive as to where he'll play next season. Fans are hanging on to every tweet, looking for any sign of which team he's leaning towards. Yesterday, Watt mysteriously tweeted, quote, "Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell." Fans are scrambling to decode what exactly that meant. LeVar, what the heck does this mean, and where is J.J. Watt going next season?
I'm not going to touch that.
I'm with you, LeVar.
Jennings?
idea what this means. I'm not going to try to unravel this. This is out of my league right here, Chris.
It's clearly out of J.J. Watt's league, too.
I hear the fans in Buffalo and Cleveland are going crazy over this. I have no idea why. Look, this might not have anything to do with football. I mean, honestly, I don't know what in the world that could be.
Nobody here took AP biology? I mean, come on, guys.
I think my wife is a biology major and a teacher and dean of students, but I wouldn't even take this home and ask her because I don't even think it's worth the time.
So we'll just skip to the fun part. Where is J.J. Watt signing next season?
Who wants J.J. Watt?
Everyone?
Does everybody want him?
I mean, a good run stopper, a veteran leader in the locker room? Yeah.
Better days are behind him?
He wants to win. Couple options for him.
LeVar Arrington, negative Nancy on J.J.
I'm not being negative. I'm just saying. You got to be wanted to get somewhere.
He can go with Brady and try to get him one. He can go with Aaron and try to dethrone Brady. Those are his options.
What about Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City?
Medulla oblongata. Put in that next tweet of Medulla oblongata.
Green Bay
crocodiles need sun. Crocodiles need sun so that they can smell better when they out. So they're not so mean.
LeVar Arrington brushing up on his biology.
You think? What do you seem to have some idea about mitochondria? Tell us.
I have no clue. I haven't looked at a science book since I took Rocks for Jocks.
Mighty
in college.
Power Hair Barbershop and Coming to America. That's as close as I can get to saying that.
Yeah, what are you talking about, man? You see me shirtless? Stop it, Broussard.
You're a weekend warrior. You became a jock at 35.
Tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. Chris Broussard's going to tell us all about the Lakers win over the Jazz.
That's the cream he puts on his elbow.
LeVar Arrington will be ready for action. Greg Jennings will probably stop by. Coming up right now, Colin Cowherd.